Hello and welcome to the another episode of Beyond the Score podcast that brings you the views of opinions of those in the news, brought to you by Khelnao. I'm your host Ashish Negi. Our guest today has been involved with stunting the foundation of Indian sports for many years. He has held high position in reputed entities like Manchester United Soccer School and former I-League outfit Mumbai FC. More recently, he has played a key role in shaping the excellent work across a number of development initiatives of Tata Steel, cutting across the several sports, including the well-known Tata Football Academy. It's a warm welcome to Jamshedpur FC CEO Mukul Chaudhary. Hi Mukul, how are you doing?
I'm great, Ashish. Thanks for having me here. It's really wonderful to see you after a long time.
Yeah. So you have been involved with Jamshedpur FC, Tata Football FC, but let's talk about something, establishment of Jamshedpur FC. What was the motivation, vision and goal of Tata Group? We usually heard in past that they wanted to involve in grassroots football. What changed? What changed their heart? What came in Indian football which forced them to change their heart and move into the professional football setup?
So honestly, we were watching how the sport was evolving, and we have been in the sport for quite some time. Tata Football Academy itself is basically over 30 years old, and we actually bought Super Soccer, which was almost more than 35 years old. It was the 1984 that we got Super Soccer series in India, which was the best of Europe and Latin American teams when they came here and played in India. Right from Bochum to Sao Paulo, Eindhoven. It was just great. So that was our legacy. In fact, we have a league that we run here, which is sponsored or rather completely run by Tata Steel, which is 75 years old, which is the local football league called Jamshedpur JSA League. It's called the Jamshedpur Sporting Associations League. That's 75 years old. I think it's one of the oldest leagues. So that's our passion and love for the sport, and that's the legacy as far as I'm concerned of Jamshedpur and football per se. We were there in TFA. We used to play second division, first division, if you remember, second division at that point of time. And then in 2006, we also qualified for the first division. But I think the management took a conscious decision then to stay and focus on development. And that was critical. I think that was a very right decision then. And as you may know, TFA today has produced over 150 plus national team players. I don't think you can match the statistics with anybody else. And 24 of them actually have, on various occasions, have captained the country. So you are talking about statistics which are very, very different. Cut to Jamshedpur FC in 2017. I came here to actually manage TFA, and that's when at that point of time it happened so that there was no air about getting into the club business, though we were looking at exploring getting into second division for exposure's sake for our cadets. But then when we were seeing the ISL, it actually was ISL, and the way that Indian football has matured, we thought it was the right time to step in. And that's where the senior leadership in Tatas have actually stepped in and said, hey, let's launch a club now. I think football needs this boost. At the same time, the ecosystem that you have back in Jamshedpur will only complement this. So I think that's how the decision to move into commercial side of football, which you were never in, happened in 2017.
You talked about the legacy of Tata Football Academy. There are various academies which have come in Indian football since Tata Football Academy was born, basically. And nobody, with their even how much money they have put in, nobody has matched that legacy, and people respect that fact. When they talk about Football Academy in India, I think everybody will say Tata Football Academy, and I think for the young footballers, whoever I spoke to in say 5 or 6, 7 years down the line, they have dream of, when will the TFA trials will happen, we want to go there. So let's talk about TFA first, we all heard the story of, Ratan Tata and everybody getting involved. They wanted to do something for a sport. Jamshedpur is a, city which loves sports, especially football. We all remember TFA games getting good crowd. So can you tell us about how this academy got, into the mainstream business of grassroots development and the, youth development of Indian football, and how the evolution of academy happens over the year?
Right. So as I mentioned, typically we were very serious. Whatever we do in terms of excellence, we were very serious about it. And just to share with you, typically wherever Tata Steel has got involved into sports and they work toward excellence, it is basically to attain excellence and to peak the way we want it. We don't compromise on that. Even when there was not much of traction as far as football was concerned at that point of time, we didn't have so much of viewership and stuff. We still had foreign partners, be it the Cologne University, be it so many other universities. We had attachment with Sao Paulo at some point of time. We had Sheffield United as our partner. way back in 2010 and otherwise. So we were working towards excellence, looking for knowledge partners who could help us get better. And trust me, all this was completely with the intention to better the standards of Indian football, and nothing to do with commercials. You know that there was no fees that one would get from transfer and otherwise. It was just the very much the pride in terms of creating an excellent cadet or an athlete and putting him down there where he can perform at the highest level. And that's why you see Udanta and so many other players, Subrata Paul and so many others. Right now, as we speak, there are 28 TFA graduates who are playing in ISL and many more in I-League. So this is the kind of number which currently is playing. And, we are very, very proud of all these shining examples that are there. TFA, of course, has evolved. Right now, we are with Atletico de Madrid, who's also a partner. We have a full-time pro license coach who's the head coach of this academy right now, guiding us in terms of getting better in terms of how this youth system can actually evolve into what we see back in Europe. Because we're very keen to see to it that now that we are into commercial side of the sport, it makes that much more sense to have a partner who can help you evolve to that level where you can produce your own players and have them play. And so much more that you could actually try to see if you could do something with the local players, because it is a transition. It's some time of progression that you need. And that development part would take 10 to 12 years for all you know, because you have to start working on the 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds today to get them to the level when they become 18 or 19. That's when they will be actually playing for your city. And, there's no bigger pride than playing for your own city and representing you. So, we are getting to that level. And for that, we needed a partner who could actually help us get there. And we had evaluated many, but we thought Atletico had the kind of, basically the kind of infrastructure and the support that, because we saw them grow, they have 80 odd teams in the youth system, which I think is unparalleled to any other system back in Europe. So, we thought it would be good. And that's how TFA has always been focused on development. And now that we are taking grassroots is because TFA was more of a national football finishing school. So you had talents from all over the country. One was not really looking at just this part. Okay. Now we are focusing more on our city and trying to get there with, therefore the grassroots program. So you can have a good supply chain, so to say, for players who would create locally. Of course, it will take time to get there, but it's a distance that we will cover in a short while.
So, Mukul, you're speaking about, Sheffield United. I remember Udanta Kuman going to UK, I think, for a good training exercise. And I watched those photos when Udanta has a long hairs, And as a football fans, that time Udanta was coming up for India under 16, was doing so well. And we were so, excited for him. And I'm sure that he has made his journey now playing for national team, playing for Bengaluru FC, one of the main players of the national team. So how pride Tata Group takes in the Tata Football Academy, and how this evolution has happened since it came, now it's one of the biggest granary of Indian football. So as a group, say for example, who are sitting on top, not on the sports, but who are taking care of the traditional business, how pride they take on this?
It's, I'll tell you, I don't think it's a bigger honor for us and even for the players and cadets, and we respect them so much. We have, I think, Ashish, someday you should visit Jamshedpur, and you'll see that we have a roll of honor where we display all the athletes that we have supported who work with us. In fact, in TFA, if you ask me in particular, we have their photographs and their names on the wall. So whenever these boys come, they actually take pictures. All these things are there. And I, for example, whenever there's a home game in Jamshedpur, I would invite my players who are ex-TFA cadets after the match, the next day, because before the match, it's not allowed to mingle. But after the match, the next day morning, it's a tradition now that lasts 2-3 years. I will call all of them. So there'll be Rino Anto coming, there'll be Cabra coming, everybody coming. They'll be sitting there and chatting with the TFA cadets. They'll be rushing to the room. There's nostalgia. You can see all of that in this boy's eyes, because, and every team wherever who would come here, I would basically have my ex-cadets being called over. They have a small dialogue with our kids. We have a session. In fact, Sunil Chetri has also basically been kind to come once. And along with Cabra and Udanta and everybody, they're sitting together and chatting with the boys, telling them how to grow, what have they been through when they were, the journey when they were. And we are extremely proud. So in fact, every year when the teams are complete, we put up all the pictures of all the boys who are there in ex-TFA cadets on a big flex in TFA, saying these are the boys across various teams, but they are all our boys. And they've all grown here just like you, and this is a big inspiration for all the boys in TFA right now. So we have 40 odd cadets who regularly see them day in and day out. It's there in the lobby. That's how we upheld them and so hold them up. We're very, very proud of them. And whether they play for JFC or not, they are still a TFA boy who's grown here, and we have contributed to his growth. So that's more than that. We feel that we're just good, happy that they're playing at the level, and they've managed to reach the level that we expected them to. So we're just happy.
TFA was founded in 1987. It's 33 years since Tata Football Academy has been giving footballers to Indian football team. Or now you're speaking about, talking to graduates or graduates who come playing. I'm sure every ISL team will have somebody from Tata Football Academy playing for them, and then you can do the same exercise with every ISL team. That tells the volume of the work TFA has done. So my next question was TFA only, So we all remember earlier TFA used to have trials of 15-year-old, 16-year-old. So how this have changed? Are you moving that bracket to say 10, 11 or 8 or 9? Or have you evolved this thing around, for the local people in Jamshedpur or local players in Jamshedpur who might be not part of the academy setup, but they are training with TFA? So tell us something about this, which has not come outside since you guys are doing this, I think I remember.
Right. So this has started more effectively in last 2-3 years, though we were doing, we had our feeder centers before and stuff like that. But with Jamshedpur FC coming in, this became a more serious business, so to say. At the same time, the focus on local players, and so you, for infrastructure purpose, you can't have so many residential programs. So you have non-residential program for the local players here, whom you're trying to develop. So we have players right from the age of 6 right now, or maybe 5 at some stage, and they regularly train with us. Then you have a proper JFC under 10 team. Then you have under 12 team, under 13 team, under 14 team. And then if you're under 15, you get, for TFA, you have a program for 4 years, which is basically for under 16 and under 18 boys. And that continues the way it is. So now you're creating something which could be, more like a backward integration, where you're getting all these grassroots players to now develop to a level where they can be the probables for TFA at some stage. So that's how one is now working on the grassroots in the local region. While we will always be going out and looking for players like we do in various footballing pockets, be it Kerala, but we have players from Jammu and Kashmir, just name it, and all the almost 15, 16 states we have players coming from. That may still continue, but our idea now is to see to it that we have more of local talent which can come and play for the city. And therefore the grassroots program, and we have engaged a lot of qualified coaches. In fact, we invested quite a bit in time and energies in terms of creating coaches here, because what we realized was, though we had a lot of children, you need professional coaches to train them. You need good teachers, and if you don't have that at the grassroots level, it may not help you the way it is. It might just be training. You need them to do more of a scientific delivery so that they become what you want them to become. So that's how it's been now.
So now also they have a pathway, not just earlier they used to be graduate from Tata program, then go to the I-League, other I-League or other ISL clubs. Now they have their own club, and it might be pride feeling for these youngsters go on to represent their, club who are based out in their own locality. So other than Jamshedpur, what are the plans for the state overall, for Jamshedpur FC, for Tata Football Academy also, not just Jamshedpur, for state, we know that state has a ample amount of talent, and raw talent. It's not about the technical talent, but raw physicality of the players is different compared to other parts of India. So what about for the state?
It is. So we are doing a lot. We work very closely with the state association. In fact, all the tournaments that we conduct, everything that we do here. For example, I'll tell you, even for girls football, women's football per se, we are among the very few states in the country who might be having a women's league, so to say, in the state, which we have started. So we had good participation for that, and we have been seeing the results. We right now in the probables for under 17 World Cup, we have almost 8 all probables from Jamshedpur, so Jharkhand alone.
Yeah.
That's a big number for one state to contribute, and I think the state is doing a fantastic job. And I think again together it will make a big difference. I think this overall, I would say that it's more like a catalyst that you work on. You basically have a good aspiration that you create through JFC, and you basically have everybody getting engaged into the game. Trying to be there, and it's more about creating that aspiration, and therefore the engagement that would happen in the sport. And I see those effects happening very rapidly across this country and across the state per se. And I'm sure that, we, with all the clubs doing whatever activity that they're doing in their particular region, the entire state country would get ignited as far as football is concerned. I think this is the next big thing to happen to India.
Yeah, and we hope that also the Under 17 World Cup, Women's World Cup is coming on, as you touch upon that. And for that World Cup, the camp is happening in Jamshedpur, of course, because there are lots of girls are from Jamshedpur. So IAAF have decided to host the camp in Jharkhand only. And that's a good for a state like Jharkhand, to contribute at the international stage now, not just the national stage. So let's now, from keeping Tata Football Academy aside, of course, we can't keep it aside with the legacy and history of it, but let's move towards Jamshedpur FC. What are the challenges of operating a football club, and you might have a chat with the management who is here for years managing TFA. What difference they have felt between, managing academy structure and managing Jamshedpur FC? And is there any pressure? There is some pressure on the people who are managing football club compared to academy?
Not really. Only thing is the operations is very, very different. Fortunately for me, I had worked in both the setups before. So one knew about how academy school would work, or rather, how basically when you're doing it for the larger good, where you're training people for reaching the highest level. So as far as excellence is concerned. But at the same time, when it comes to club, it's very different. It's basically very focused. You mean pure business, and therefore performance really, really matters. Not that it doesn't matter when you're doing it with the academies, but here basically everything counts. At the same time, every time you lose a game, win a game, it has its implication. But more importantly, I think because of the kind of legacy that Jamshedpur and Tata Steel has, the understanding of the sport was not so difficult. It was not something that you have to drive it down in terms of saying, hey, if you ask me, the relative challenges were not there. The management is very forthcoming. The kind of infrastructure one has developed, that only goes to talk about the commitment and the how skewed they are towards the sport to have it developed. I don't think anybody else would have invested so much in the infrastructure per se. Though we had our existing infrastructure, in terms of getting the kind of ground that we have here in JID Sports Complex, the exact replica I have it for the senior team for the practice pitch. Now, not many do that. You actually your practice pitch is not mostly the level that you do with the senior team, the main pitch. But we have done exactly that. Even the accommodation that we have for the players is just out of the world. It's basically and the entire campus is close knit. And trust me, it was a different setup once upon a time. We had to raise a lot of houses to bring up the ground. But just that we wanted everything in one place, like the gym, the swimming pool, and everything in one campus, we had to realign the whole thing. And trust me, all of this was done in less than a year's time. Yeah. And that speed and that whole, putting that entire block together is not an easy task. One is about thinking and having that vision that I would want to do good things, and secondly, actually getting on the ground and doing it. And I think you give that this is only Tata Steel can do this. It's something that you basically feel amazed about. In fact, Steve Koppel was the coach then, and he used to monitor it because we started the work at that point of time. And he said, Mukul, I want to just visit the site once. And I said, let's go. He said, do you think when will it be ready? So I was very confident because I've been speaking to the management, say another 3 months it would be ready. And he said, I doubt it would be ready. So he asked me, I said, yeah, maybe, but the thing is we are working towards it, and that's how it is. So one was being polite and telling him that, there's good work that is being done. One evening he planned to go there and he saw people again. And then the city is very small. So I was in TFA and he said, let's visit it. So he asked me how many people are working. I said, there are 400 people working right now on the site. He said, 400? I said, yeah, and they work round the clock. They work in 2 shifts. Night, of course, they sleep. But there are 2 shifts that they work on. And the work goes on till 9:30 in the night. And that's how because we are very committed that we deliver this in 3 months. And that's the commitment the club and the company shows. And I don't see that. And he was amazed. And he actually congratulated us once it was done. And he said, I thought it would never happen. And with his experience and with his background, the person of his stature saying that, I think it was a big plus for us. And whoever's been to Jamshedpur and saw our infrastructure is really amazed. In fact, that's one reason why most of the players also come here, because you're actually helping them. This, in terms of if you have a good infrastructure to practice, it reduces injury and many other things, and it could help you be a better player. So from that perspective, you ask me, for every player, it's an aspiration to come here. Right from Gurpreet has mentioned it, there are many foreign players who, whenever the interviews have mentioned the kind of infrastructure that we have for Jamshedpur. And even Owen, when I was speaking to him, this was the biggest pitch for him. I was saying that, you have your own ground, you have your own people, you decide when to do your practice, you have lights, so you can decide it's completely at your disposal. So if you want to do a good job in football, you can't get better place than this. And that's what works for us.
And
so
talking about this, you're not renting anything out. Every club talk about building stadium in future, and nobody knows that Jamshedpur FC has their own stadium and own pitches, own facilities. And you're already there. I think on the infrastructure wise, and I hope that going ahead, Jamshedpur FC will also get into the Asian competition. And I'm sure the licensing part will be easier for you guys compared to the other people in the league, because you already have that infrastructure owned by the club, not by any other party or renting it out. So that will help you going ahead on the AFC licensing also.
No, AFC licensing, of course. See, the thing is, like when we were with Mumbai FC also, we had done a licensing bit then. So one is very much aware of the process. At the same time, infrastructure is just one bit of it. There's a lot of other things, and we were among the 5 clubs who actually complied to it last year. Yeah. And which is something which we would continue, because this is something that, as far as compliance is concerned, I don't think will falter anywhere.
Yeah, because infrastructure wise, it is easy for you guys, but that's already in place, and Tata has been working on that for a while. So let's talk about something about first season, going back, signing Subroto Paul, one of the biggest graduate of the academy, has done everything in his life for various clubs, for national team. I remember that performance in Asia Cup 2011 when even Australian and South Korean player was shocked by seeing the level of his performance. How important was his signing, to bring him home? They say, to bring him home. So to bring Subroto Paul home in the first campaign, and what were the challenges, to start the club in the league? Not about the management side, but the playing wise, coaches, player, gathering everything. How tough was that, and what was the importance of Subroto Paul signing?
So it is always tough, and that point of time we were just about getting ready. The first year was not so easy, but we had the capabilities in terms of getting there. So though we had the stadium, there's a lot of correction one had to do, because it was not meant for football, so to say. Though footballers played there, you had to change the entire pitch, and you had very little time. You basically you started your work in sometime in June, July, and you had to finish it by October. So it was too small a span for you to put together many, many, many things. And then you had a player draft. So see, player draft in a way was a plus. I think I thank ISL for it. So you had everybody on the level playing field, so to say. Though pricing was very different, but it was typically something that, putting all the clubs on a level playing field, and we pick your players. And for me, we were very clear when I was with Steve, and Steve was very clear. We were actually, our thoughts were sinking as far as how we are going to build a team. And we said, we'll build a team from behind. We want our defense to be set, and that's how we will build it up, and then go upwards. So that's how we started planning it. And therefore, Subroto Paul, in fact, when we picked up the players, if you remember in the draft, we had Albino and Subroto. And then one was thinking that, it would be either of the two. And we were actually, okay, though Subroto was something that was close to our heart, because he's a brand by himself. And but there were less defenders in the central defenders that were there. And our first pick was Anas. But we knew that even if I lose Subroto, I might get Albino. But then we were hoping that it doesn't happen. And fortunately for me, I think the other team picked up Albino, and I had the second round where I picked up Subroto. So that's how we were very keen. So we did by the way, for preparation's sake, me, Steve, Ishfaq, my colleague Prashant, and Gaurav, all of us were working 6 nights before and doing mocks with the list. So we were role playing as far as we were 4 or 5 different teams, and and we were giving reasons as to why I'm picking that particular player. Okay. And it really helped. So if you know, I don't know if you've noticed it, during the draft, our response time was the fastest.
Yeah.
We did not wait. It was quick. It was like Anas, next Subroto, next this. It was as if they were waiting for us to be picked, those kind of things. So we had exercise done. I'm sure other clubs do that. But since we were based in Bombay, we said, okay, every evening we do a mock. And you come up with your good reasons why you're picking that player. And it really helped. I think it worked for us.
And that means no discussion on the table, right? You know that which player you want to pick next, and like other clubs.
So you had the list ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So though we were doing a bit of discussion at some stage when you were losing the players that you wanted as first options, of course it happened quite a few times, but you had the ready second options and you had the reasons for that second option ready, which was the preparedness that helped us uh, in a big way, and that's why we could pick the players that we wanted, and that's how we had it there. That kind of a thing.
So,
Though
yeah,
unfortunately, yeah.
yeah.
Though
Go
unfortunately,
on.
when it came to foreign players, though our defense was set, I think what we lacked that point of time was a striker, a proper striker, which we missed. And though we had Belford and even Izu Azuka at some stage, we didn't get the kind of expected delivery. Which they were good players in their own right. Somehow it didn't work so well. But otherwise, if you remember, we were fifth on the table, but we still picked up the Golden Glove. So we were the team which conceded the least amount of goals. I think probably that credit goes to
The
all
strategy
the
in the
team.
draft. Also, the strategy in the
The
draft,
way
right?
we
You pick
build it.
defenders and goalkeeper first. You were just saying.
Exactly. So it basically goes down there. So recruitment makes a big difference.
Okay.
True.
So, not talking about league, since Jamshedpur has come into now, there is a increased competition for those top four places. We have seen last few seasons, they have so much pressure on all the clubs to make it into the top four playoffs. And now with AFC spots coming to the league stage winner, it's also made more important for the clubs to do very well throughout the league period so that they can finish on top and go for the Champions League spot. So how you see that, as a club and as a personnel also, how you see that, the increased competition in the league since Jamshedpur has come on the board?
See, I'll tell you, competition is good and it only gets the best out of you. So it will help us push ourselves, all the clubs, I must say, not Jamshedpur alone, and it will only get better. And the league standards, or rather the quality of the play, will only get better. So from that perspective, the competition we welcome the competition. It's best for the clubs and the Indian football ecosystem per se. This will also help you in terms of now that I League is also playing at a certain level. You have a second division. You have a good structure at the bottom. It will also evolve along with the ISL and the spots that we are getting in AFC. So everything will have implication and it will percolate downwards, and overall the footballing quality. See, we are a nation of 1.3 billion, which I think will work to your advantage in the years to come. In next 7 years or 8 years, life will be very different. I think my generation has seen certain amount of football, but a generation after us, or two generations after this, after let's say about another 10 years, my son will see a different footballing country in India than what I have been seeing as far as growth is concerned. Fortunately for me, I would have seen it grow from what it was to what it is now. Even the journey from 160 to 100 is quite a thing as far as FIFA ranking is concerned. I'm saying that, I see a lot of football happening. I see a lot of traction as far as youth is concerned. And you see that change happening in the game. And while one says this, one is not comparing with cricket. We are a country which has appetite for more than 5 sports. And we were one single sport country. That's because cricket brought us pride. And the way it was managed is also fantastic. There's a lot to learn from cricket and the cricket administrators. While we say this, it's important to understand that, there are countries which have multiple sports and all the sports are equally respected. It's about you achieving that level and therefore earning that respect. I think football is on that journey and that path right now. And with every year, with the quality of football getting better and your prospects getting better at AFC level, it is only going to help you. And the footballing ecosystem in India is going to evolve much more faster than we thought it would.
Yeah. And of course, we can take an inspiration from, say, Australia or England, who are multi-sports country, and they have been not just cricket or football, they have multiple sports, and they have fan following for multiple sports. And the amount of people we have, our population, of course, we can have at least 4 or 5 sports at the top level, team sports, so which people can follow. So also talking about the philosophy of Jamshedpur FC, of course, you have Steve Coppell, English coach before, but slowly the club moved towards the Spanish philosophy, getting Atletico Madrid on board, who were of course before part of the Atletico Kolkata, and they left and they came to Jamshedpur. So how tough or to convince how this partnership happened, and how tough was to convince to come back in ISL to do something on a grassroots level, not on the first team level. So can you tell about this transition for Jamshedpur FC moving towards that Spanish influence?
So honestly, for us, it was a good European club who understand the sport more than being Spanish or English, so to say. If you ask me, it was not the criteria that we had said that we want somebody from Spain. It is just that we saw Atletico evolving, and they're a fantastic club. What they've done back in their own country, the way they've grown in the last 10 years, I think their journey is amazing. And particularly in the youth setup, what they've done, we were very much impressed, and we thought that we physically went there. We basically had seen through their programs, and we thought it was the best club to tie up with. We started with TFA, and that's where we thought that we will hold hands. We're working together. They were helping us with all the coaches, and I think we have learned a lot from them. And they continue to be our partners in terms of how we put things together. So because of course they're coming from an evolved footballing nation, they have certain knowledge in which we are learning still from them. So there is a good amount of handholding that we do with them, and we are progressing accordingly with together. So if you ask me, the influence was good. We were helped. The scoring that basically every time, but there's a change in thought process in terms of what we want to achieve. So but those things are only helping us as a brand and our own growth as far as football is concerned. So if you ask me, it has been a positive journey, and it has been a positive partnership, so to say, going so far.
Yeah, so moving from off the pitch, let's put you some pressure on you now with the question. Jamshedpur FC always made good team on papers, you have good coaches, good foreigners, good Indian players. Do you felt that team has underperformed in previous season, not made into the playoffs? So how you see that, from the behind?
So I'll tell you, of course, the team has underperformed. If we have not made it to the playoffs, that's the measure. And you're playing a league, you're not playing a one-off game per se. So, typically that's, we all expected them to be much higher than what it was. Last year was an exception though. But the previous 2 seasons, we were very close to being in the playoffs. We were like 1 or 2 points just behind. I can't call it luck. We should have worked harder. There were lots of, if you remember the second year, the amount of draws that one had, one was quite amazed at the whole thing. In fact, we scored, second year when Cesar Ferrando was leading the team, we scored 29 goals, which was equal to what Bengaluru had scored, which was the champions then. So in terms of scoring, you were not lagging behind. You were basically, only thing you conceded as many goals, and you lost games at the last point, which is something which, sometimes you feel is a matter of luck. Sometimes it was the referee decision, but you can't blame those, because these are things which happen with any team and club. But at the same time, you always lost the playoff spot for a whisker, which is something which was hurting me for last 3 seasons per se, or 2 seasons per se, because even with Steve Coppell, when Wellington came in, because we didn't have a striker, and we actually recruited Wellington mid-season, that was in January. Things changed for us drastically, and we were almost there, but still could not make it. So I would not blame the team. Team was doing well. Could have done better? Yes, they could have done better. We could have reached the playoffs. Yes, we had the spot. Last year, if you ask me, was a very exceptional year. We had a fantastic team. I still have to see it. Castile was among the best players I've seen in the league so far.
Yeah.
The way he was finishing. You had Piti, who was the number 10, the playmaker. Amazing skills. I don't see anybody parallel to him. And we were very, very impressed. Now imagine your best player getting injured in the 4th game. And that to a fracture. And Piti, with his age, recovery was an issue, because a fracture would keep you off for at least 6 weeks. And with the league itself being of 12, 14 weeks, or little more than that, if you lose more than 6 games, if you don't have your best player, you have 33% of your, and it becomes very, very tough. And then later, Noah Acosta, who was again my best winger, who got injured. Again, a fracture. Castile also had a major injury or a fracture, which was a twist of his leg. It was bad. Every time the players to get injured, it used to hurt. And lastly, Thierry, while you were losing out on the front, and then out of nowhere, you had this particular accident that happened on the field where Subatos Paul's knee went into Thierry's chest, and he broke his rib. He got a rib fracture. Now, Thierry has never missed a game in last 3 seasons. And then I thought it was a disaster. Complete disaster. I thought front to kaise we were trying to manage, and now with defense collapsing, I could see because Memo was also playing behind. Memo is not a pure defender,
Yeah.
but he was somehow managing along with Thierry. He was a defensive midfielder, but when I saw all that happening, it was really hurting. Every time the players would go down, I said, "Oh God!" And it's not a very easy thing because at that point of time, you actually need somebody who could give you empathy and empathize with you. But I know I've run clubs, so I know how things work. And many a times you get lots of advices and more of flack for the non-performance on the team. So those things happen. But at the same time, I'm really glad that we could still manage. In fact, when Thierry got injured, I thought I'm going to land back bottom of the table. But also, of course, other teams were also suffering injuries and they were going through a bad patch. Net injuries is part of the game. It's only that it were too many that happened to us together, and that too when we were doing fairly well. Because in the first half of the league, there was almost for the first 7-8 games, I was on top 4 continuously, and I was hoping that Castle would make a comeback. I was hoping that Noah could make the same impression. Somehow, with 4 foreigners down, life was difficult.
Yeah, these are mostly contact injuries, which you can't control. But do you feel that as an ecosystem, as an Indian football, we need to do a bit better on the sports science, which European clubs have been doing a fantastic job. And I don't see as much influence in Indian football. So do you think we also need to invest heavily in the sports science?
We should, and just to put that point there, typically, I must share this. 2 years back, we launched a sports high performance center, which is Sports Science Center in Jamshedpur. So I have because apart from football that we do, we have archery, we have hockey, and we have many other sports, climbing, and many other elite sports which are there. In fact, we have a world number 6 para badminton player who's groomed here. So we have a lot of senior elite athletes who we cater to, and this high performance center set back in has been started in Jamshedpur, where we understand the importance and relevance of having a high performance center. One is to see to it that the injuries per se are reduced, so you have a prehab, and if they are injured, they have to come back on the field quicker, because the athlete's career per se will be affected big time. You and I can still be doing a work on this thing, but if their body is not with them, or rather if they're injured, their career goes for a toss, and it affects the entire experience or rather the efforts that they've put in the last 4, 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years. It goes for a toss if they're not treated well. So we understand the relevance, and we started this in Jamshedpur, and I think that's also going to help the athletes as we go along.
Also, when Jamshedpur FC came into ISL, or Tata Steel came into ISL, there were talks of conflicts between I-League and ISL. Now ISL is AFC approved. ISL League Stage champion is going to AFC Champions League this season. FC Goa is going to play in AFC Champions League, first Indian club to play in the group stage of the AFC Champions League. How you see this Indian roadmap which AFC put? I am sure the ISL club also gave their views to the AFC regarding the merger plan and how it has impacted club overall in the planning and structure for planning new season now that the AFC approved. Is it easier to attack players now? That because of course you have a chance to play in AFC Champions League?
It is. In fact, that really helps, because what happens when you're going out for seeking foreign players, it makes a big difference. Even for Indian players per se, it's a big aspiration for you that you're now going to play at the Asian level. That will also increase your probability. Maybe you will start playing in other countries. Maybe you start exporting players in years to come. So that is the roadmap for India per se, and I think in years to come it will be seen, as I mentioned, it will see a different football. But at the same time, you can never, the contribution of I-League and the way it has evolved with the sport, you can never deny that. They have done a fantastic job, and it's just that the way the sport needed the investments, not every I-League team or rather the ownerships could have afforded. Because with ISL, you have scaled it up to a different level altogether. It was pitched at a different level. You started seeing the audience coming back to the stadiums, which was equally critical, because finally, if you don't make it a spectator sport and you don't reach out and you don't show that quality, it will get affected and you'll never be able to grow. So while you were doing a good job, it was expected to take you to the next level and next notch, which ISL did.
Okay, so let's move it.
Yeah. So talking about AFC roadmap, now there are talks of starting promotion and relegation in the league plus 3+1 foreigners. How is a club Jamshedpur see this? Do you think bringing 3+1 will be more helpful for Indian football, or you're fine with current 5 or 6 foreigners model?
See, if you have to promote Indian footballers, then the 4+1, 3+1 model works for you, because that's important for you. Because tomorrow, if, for example, right now, like you were speaking the other day, typically right now, just go by the Indian strikers per se. We have never been able to develop strikers, but because they don't get opportunity and the game time that they need, and of course, there's a gap between the Indian strikers and foreign strikers, but everybody would prefer a foreign striker. But the amount of game time that the Indian striker would need to evolve to that level, one would never get. So you would never be able to. In last so many years, we have not been able to do that. Even if we have JJ, we have few. I'm not saying they're not strikers, but they're not to the level, and that's purely because many of them come off the bench just to fill in when the foreign striker is not this thing, or you're resting him or something like that. So something that these are the positions that you need to develop. While we are doing in many other areas, I think it is important that you develop each of these areas. And for Indian football per se, if you have to play at the AFC level and otherwise, the quality of each position and basically the grooming of each position is necessary. And therefore, I think more and more players will be therefore getting an opportunity on field, which will help them get better. Whether the foreigners, of course, the foreigners come with a different standard. We have been playing with them for so long. It helps because there's a lot that they learn from the Indian players would learn from them. There's a lot of things that get transferred in terms of training and knowledge of the field as well. So these things are pluses, but moving to 3+1 is something that is required and necessary, and you will have to do it at some stage, and so be it. And it basically will help Indian players. So I think it will only be wise to do that now and take it up further.
And what about promotion relegation? I think in next 3 or 4 seasons, it will be there.
Yeah, and I think it's necessary also for the system, because what happens, then otherwise you would. It's important because if there's no relegation, you might at some stage get complacent.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's no aspiration for the
bottom of team to play.
Bottom of team to basically grow. Then otherwise you'll have to always have direct entries, which is not the best way to go about. Then it's basically a rich man's game, so to say. But you don't want to do it that way. It will have to be a level playing field. I think the reason why it was not there was also to first set the ecosystem right, which I think we have managed very well. I think I credit to ISL and Star for that. Now, basically, at some stage, you'll have to induct the promotion relegation. And I think another 3-4 years, you will see that happening. And it's good for the system. If you ask me, promotion and relegation will help you create that particular... You'll basically keep pushing yourself and only get better as an ecosystem. So I think it is just wise to have that.
So also, now there is emphasis of FIFA, AFC and all the global players on the grassroots development in India. So, and this is coming from Tata side, who has been doing this for years, more than 30 years now. What are the lessons to be learned in the grassroots development? What we need to do better? What the feeling of say Tata Football Academy experience, which you guys learn from? What do you think? Why it is very important for us to invest time and money in the grassroots development, not just on the top level, say in ISL or I League? So, can you share those lessons to our viewers and listeners?
See, one thing is very clear that, typically grassroots was always ignored. Okay. And every other coach, unfortunately, even the kind of salaries that we pay at the grassroots level and even otherwise, these are teachers and you have to respect them. It is important that when you evolve a system, we see to it that, for example, when we had TFA, you had more like in high school, but you didn't have any primary education at all. Okay. So that's where grassroots sets in. Okay. When it comes to reserve team, it is more like a college where you get exposure. At the same time, you also get an internship kind of a thing. So, those things were there. And then you have the senior team where you actually are performing, which is where you get a job, so to say.
Yeah,
exactly. So one is very mindful of that. And basically, therefore, grassroots is very critical. Today, when we were talking about raw talent, it need not be raw when it comes to TFA level.
Yeah, because it's already 15, 16, 14, 15, 16.
Exactly. And the biggest challenge there when you actually get somebody inducted into TFA is the biggest worry is actually getting him to unlearn what he's learned. because now you're finishing him. So when you're finishing him, he's playing football for last 7-8 years, and if that is not correct at some stage, you can't make him unlearn. So you have your own set of challenges when he lands in TFA. Okay, and 16, 17 years or rather 15 years is maybe little late in the day, but you don't have so many academies which cater to at that level. So it was very critical. So we said we can't keep opening academies at this level, but if you educate coaches and you see to it that the school PT teacher or school sports teacher is educated, automatically this education will go down. And that's what we took as a step at that point of time, where we educating people, coaches rather, at the grassroots level, and that we took up as an initiative in Jamshedpur. And last 3 years we have managed to create almost 220 odd grassroots coaches, and now we're helping them get into D license. Many of them have done, then evolve them into C license. This is something which we started 3 years back, and we will see that this will bear its fruits as time goes along, because people have understood the relevance and the importance of knowledge, so it can be scientifically delivered at a much younger age at schools, because you can't go and own so many academies in life. If you have to train to get the best of people, you need a larger pool at the base, but then you can't open an academy which can cater to all of that. But what you can do is, there are already schools and there are already infrastructure which is in place, and you educate them, which can help you grow this pool. So that's what one is doing. Yeah. And I think in years to come, we'll see that happening. And while I say this, I think there are other clubs also which are doing this. While we are doing this, we have our own classes. I think I see many of them actually investing in grassroots and at a youth level, which is really good. When I see all this, I feel great saying that, there's football schools, football education per se, the way AIFF is going about, the way FIFA has gone about creating football education programs. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah. Just to wrap this part, you were saying you can't teach basic, or you can't change the basic of footballer that when he is 15 or he's 16, he's already learned what he needs to learn, and you can just polish it at that age, So I think it is very important that we start as early as we possible, because in Europe, young players start as 3 at 4. I think we should start at 5, 6, 7 as possible, because that's where you learn your basic. So moving from grassroots, Tata Football Academy to Indian Super League, new season. Appointment of Owen Coyle came a bit surprise for somebody, what was the process, the qualities and departure. We talk about Spanish philosophy, and you told us that there is no Spanish philosophy, it's just the way it fit everything into the plan, So how this happened, Owen Coyle did fantastic job with Chennai FC, and I'm sure he has more suitors in the ISL, not just Jamshedpur FC. They have other clubs interested into getting his service, and of course Chennai wanted to retain him, but we are told. So how this happened, can you just tell the fans about it?
So Owen was I got in touch with Owen very much early in life. So when I saw him growing the way he was, one thought that this could be the right coach for you. And while we were also consulting our partners, it was very important that we get somebody who, and then we saw him take the club right from the bottom of the table, the same team which was playing. Yeah. And right up to the finals. And the man management skills that Owen has, I think that's unparalleled. He showed tremendous mental strength as far as how he could motivate those players, how he could get them to do the best. And how Valskis was doing in the first 6-7 games, and then the way he was scoring later. Of course, Cleveraro has also, but both of them, they teamed up fantastically well. But the man behind the whole thing, getting everybody to give their best, I think was Owen. And I think we realized it much before, and therefore we touched upon it much before. We were sharing our thoughts and philosophy, and that's where it helped. And he agreed to things that we were wanting to do in terms of, because we were always looking at developmental aspect, and that development was very key to our hearts. And that's where it touched him also, saying that, we have an academy set up, we have our own infrastructure. So if you want to actually grow in football, these are things that are very critical. And that's what got him thinking. At the same time, of course, the brand Tata is behind the whole thing. So one explained what one wants to achieve in life, and we had more sync in our thoughts, and that worked for us. And I think that changed many things for me.
Yeah. And talking about Owen and the experience he has, not just in ISL, throughout the coaching experience is fantastic,
True.
And it's very helpful for Indian youngsters also. So you got Owen Coyle, and then you got Valskis also on board. So how tough was that to get, two person who played that important role in that journey for Chennai FC to final, to grab them from the hands of the other clubs. So how tough for you,
Right.
and how was your involvement and thinking process to get both the deal over the line?
So it was not easy, but it's about touching them in the right time. Also, at the same time, being very honest and upfront in terms of what you can do, and also sharing with them that you mean business and how important sport is for you, which basically we shared with both Owen and Valkis, and that's what helped us. And not only them, even with Jackie. Jackie also is somebody
Yeah.
who's done
Played
fantastically well last season.
for Goa. Yeah.
And there are many more, and there's many more that we got on board after that. I think it was just to strengthen our squad, and we were very clear that what happened last year for us was unfortunate, but that will not bog us down. We have our eye on excellence and getting up there. Maybe playoffs is our target, and beyond playoffs, of course, getting there in finals is something what one is looking at, and therefore one was working in that direction. And it didn't start now; it started in February last year, or a little early than that. So it was important that we start preparing early, getting in touch with the right people, and therefore getting whatever we could. And it was about doing that preparation in advance and touching upon people early, because I'm sure everybody was wanting these people. All the 10 clubs would have wanted these people. But then we could make,
talking about the experience which club has learned from last 3 seasons, the recruitment style also changed. I think this season you guys gave more emphasis on the people or the players or the coaches who are already in Indian football. Not bringing, of course, you're bringing players from outside, but you thoughts on getting the key players like Vasquez, like Owen Coyle, coach, who already have experience of ISL. Was that an important criteria this season to get the win?
It is. Yeah, it is, because it's important that people have perspective. They know where they're coming. They know what they're going to do. Sometimes a coach could come from outside and he may not find himself suiting himself in this environment. So it's important that you first see to it that everything works right. And if somebody has seen the Indian footballing culture, or rather the way ISL is evolving, it would just help him adjust himself better and fit in very well. So the intention was to see to it that you get people. Of course, you would want to encourage more and more new talent to come from outside, which will happen in the due course. But at least the key positions, it's important that they know what the system is all about.
Yeah.
So and won't find it too difficult to fit in.
And with these preparation, a global epidemic happened, COVID, which has changed everything for everybody. And how COVID has impacted your preparation for the season? That's my first part of the question. Second part is, of course, now there is no home and away games. So ISL is going to take place in Goa. So will the team get impacted because no home support, no crowd, no home advantage? You're playing in a state which is far from your home. So how this thing has overall shaped your preparation for this season, and mentally, is it tough for the players or coaches now to prepare for the season, keeping that you're playing away from home?
No, it is difficult, but I think more or less people are matured and they would accept the fact that it is for everybody, and everybody realizes the fact that it's important that the league happens, the event takes place. So I'm sure everybody will be accommodative and would not, because everybody's career is at stake. Okay, and you can't really afford to. There are things that have gone bad in Europe. There are things which have gone bad across the world. Everybody's seeing them, watching them. So I think people are tuning themselves to adjust to the new normal. And there are challenges. Of course, there are challenges. If it's happening to me alone, then it's going to be tough. But it's happening to everybody around, and everybody is going to be part of that bio bubble. There are many restrictions on movement. It's not going to be easy, but it's about how you accept it and how you adapt to the situation. And I think it would be not as bad when you know that everybody is going through that. Of course, we'll have to be a little more empathetic when it comes to players and coaches, because there'll be a good amount of man management this year. But I think they would be very cooperative and supportive, because they know that this is the situation. Everybody appreciates the situation and would want to still put in their best and see to it that we may still make a better season this year.
Yeah, and now just let's talk about something personal to you. You are the CEO of the club. And what are the roles and function you are performing right now? What are everyday tasks during the season, off the season, or after the season, or when you're preparing for new season? And how you're managing club from top to bottom? Of course, I'm sure there are challenges. Any specific challenges you want to mention? We're talking about these things.
So there are lots of challenges, of course, but at the same time, see, one has been doing this for years now. So
Yeah.
one knows what bit. But if you ask me about roles and responsibilities, see, it's usually a small setup. You don't have a very extensive company, so many times you're wearing 2-3 hats together. Apart from my role as CEO of Jamshedpur FC, I'm also the chief of sports excellence centers in Jamshedpur. So you have Archery Academy, you have High Performance Center, you have Tata Football Academy to look after, which is complementing my existing job. So that's nothing to do with that, because you are a sports administrator at the end of the day. But when it comes to my roles and responsibilities, typically, right from the P&L that you're responsible for to the sponsorships, everything you're supposed to look after. But there are challenges, because you go out in the market now and you don't see sponsorships happening. Not that it was very easy before. In Indian sport, in particular football, the kind of ROI that one would look for, it still has to happen. But this is more of an investment phase, because this sport has the potential to be much larger than what it is today. Yeah. So this has to be looked upon more like an investment. And in coming years, the way it's growing and the way people are getting attracted to the sport, the numbers that you see at the stadium, and even otherwise getting on board as far as television is concerned, the kind of talent you're attracting from internationally, all of this is going to add up in their own small way, and it's going to build. It may take a little while, but it's all going to be there. Until then, it's important that you try to be as efficient, if you ask me, in every way, that you sustain yourself well and see to it that you have a good performance and reach there. So typically the challenges are there, they will always be there, but there's no fun doing things easy.
Yeah. So you talked about roles and function. Another important role or function you have not touched upon is the recruiting players, especially foreigners. And I think that is the most attractive things to the fans, which they want to know. What is the process behind? What kind of process you follow? How you are talking to the foreigners, and what kind of factors you see in the players? You talk to coach, or you talk to any scouts or agents. So just tell us. I don't want specific. Right. I don't want to reveal your strategy to your other ISL clubs, but just some general things which you can tell.
No, it's no rocket science. There's no secret strategy here. What you do is basically you collaborate and work together as a team. So there's coach, there's assistant coach, there are Indian coaches. We all sit together and evaluate players. Then you have an analyst, you have my team manager. We are in regular touch. And if you ask me, this year we touched upon close to almost 700 foreign players before shortlisting players. Not everybody would want to come to India. The numbers, the way they are growing as far as COVID is concerned, you might want somebody, he may not want to come to you, but you have to touch upon him, the dialogue, the amount of discussions that go on. He may say no. So you will at least touch 300 people, out of which you have to pick 7. And there are times when, you're actually speaking to somebody and he would say that he was in a different time zone. Just an anecdote, he would tell you that he's just walking out of the gym and it's 12 o'clock in your country and he's walking out of the gym and says, can you call me after 15-20 minutes or half an hour? I'll just connect with you. And you don't have a choice, but you can't tell him that, it's 12:30 right now and I might take a little, okay, is it that we can have quick 2 minutes? Because you just want him to be more comfortable when he's speaking to you. So you wait till 1 o'clock, 1:15 and you message him, hey, can we connect now? And he says, yeah, give me 15 more minutes. And
that's already 2 in the night.
And you're waiting. And then you speak to him at 2 o'clock in the night, as fresh as if you wanted him yesterday. And but the thing is, it works, and all this thing pays off at some stage, because when you have that player coming down and performing for you, it makes a big difference. But as a process, what we follow is we have a lot of analysis that we do. We see to it his performance in the past and look at him in we go through the videos. We have our own opinions. We do our discussions. So when we do this, basically everybody puts forth their own thoughts as to why he wants him, why he doesn't want him, whatever reason. Then there's always a salary cap that you work on. So there might be lots of players that you like, but when you're supposed to fit in all those 7 in that particular field point, then you are working backwards again. Then there could be some compromises you want to do someplace, but then you want to push that guy and figure out whether he agrees for the number that you want him to now agree. And this entire process is almost quite long and exhaustive. You rightly put the question. This is very exhaustive process of recruitment, particularly if you have the involvement in along with the coach and everybody discussing it together and not leaving it to luck. So you have to go through this, and I'm really happy we did all of that. And I'm glad that my entire team, which was working with me, managed to do that, and we were very patient. Fortunately, we had a little more time because Owen, though we announced his signing a little later, was on board. And last 3-4 months, one has been doing this on a regular basis to arrive at what we have arrived today. So it's been good. It's been good.
So, as you know, we break lots of transfer stories, exclusive, way before club announced it. Owen, we also did it, I think, when you get signed, but you did not announce, so we'll break this story. So fans do come to me, personal chats, email, messages, and they keep on asking. I keep on telling them recruitment take time, it is not easy that I like this player and it is done. It's not that simple, there are lots of factors which you have to consider before signing player, and then they keep on asking who are the player club are speaking to, I said, I can't tell the name, because we don't want to hammer the negotiation between club and the players, because there are other parties interested, so we don't want to leak those stuff. And we make sure when we make the reports or when we do this stuff, is that club has settled for some kind of deal with the players. So fans, they are desperate for the news, but sometimes we have to also maintain the balance of that. So, now moving from this, moving to Tata Steel and the sports, I will ask you one question. You have been working with Tata Group before Jamshedpur happened. So, is this past experience handling the other sports in Tata Group has helped you while working for Jamshedpur FC?
Of course. Because see, you're working with the ecosystem and you're not alone. You have people who work along with you. You have the entire corporate services division that is there, and you have managed to be. Basically, you have made your own impact. You are basically liaisoning with all of them because this is at the end of the day a team effort, right? From the infrastructure that you see coming up to what you do back in terms of administration when it comes to the team management per se. Everything you are basically liaisoning. You are relying basically. There's a good amount of even resource sharing that happens, be it HR, be it finance. So all this helps, and I think it helped me that I came here a little before. So it basically I had already have some kind of relationships, and I know a little bit of how the system works, and I could marry it very well. So and of course, because of the kind of culture that you have here, everybody is very supportive, and they understand that what you need, why you're asking this, why you're basically doing this, because you already have built a rapport over a period. At the same time, there's a bit of trust as to why these are needed, and of course, the way Tata Group is inclined towards sports. They are very much forthcoming to all these thoughts. So I think it all helped. But coming in early, working on the other projects, and then Jamshedpur happening, if you ask me, it really helped.
Did you thought when joining TFA that Jamshedpur happened? Have these thoughts any?
Not really. Not really. In fact, when I came in here, there was one of the things that was on my agenda or other was told to me that we will step into second division. We'll start our second division club, and that's when I spoke to the management and I said, "Okay, then you will have to recruit the right kind of players." They said, "No, we'll go with all TFA players." It was more like an Indian Arrows philosophy.
Yeah.
But I said, no, it won't work because if you want to perform, it need not work the way we want it to be, and every time you would lose because these are young players. They need certain amount of exposure, so you can't rely only on TFA boys. Of course, you will give preference to them, but you will need some talent that we need recruit from outside, and that means a little bit of cost. So they thought for a while, and they said no, it was more to give exposure for cadets from here, so that they are better equipped when they go out in the market later. So the recruitment process at the same time, the competitive exposure is an issue which we not need to address through this. So I said then it may not work well because at the same time, while the thought is right. Worry is that if you don't perform well, it might any which way have an impact on the players because you're also all said and done. This is a Tata team, so you want to perform at a level and you want to invest in something which you have because finally it will be out on press, everything which will impact you and our thoughts as we go along. So it's important that we do it right. You might have, even if we don't choose foreigners, you might have to take a lot of Indian talent on board, which may be from outside. And not everybody who's passed out from TFA would want to come back to TFA because we have a team here. Because of course, because there are monies which are there are commercials which are there are lots of things, there are variables. They might have feelings towards us, but when it comes to commercials, they have to take the rational and wise decision because their career span is 10 to 12 years and you have to make best out of it. So so those things are there. There are lots of variables, and I think when I came in here, I was not aware. But when it happened, one was ready.
Yeah. So, just touching on Tata Steel and other sports, we have this research around it, and we find out that Tata Steel has been supporting 18 disciplines in GRD Tata Sports Complex. This might be the outdated information, I'm not sure. So, what about Tata aspiration for India's movement for Olympic sports? Medal hopeful for how many athletes you're training? Are there anybody going to Tokyo Olympics? So, just share these stuff what Tata Steel is doing in other sports.
Right. So I'll just share typically what, though we have 18 different disciplines, I think JRD Sports Complex per se is one of the most best utilized sports facilities in the country. Going by my experience of all the facilities that I've visited so far, I've done quite a bit of moving around. You have close to 3,000 odd kids, 2,500 to 3,000 kids every evening here, training across sports, be it horse riding to boxing, from chess to archery, and everything in between. So there's basketball, there's volleyball, and so many more. The point that one is trying to make is there are excellent sports, and there is sports that we would otherwise be engaging in, which is more from training center point of view. So when it comes to excellence centers, you have hockey, football, and archery. These are the three sports which have been identified. Archery more because archery, football, and hockey, all these things, the three areas, basically where you have a lot of local talent here, and which we want to basically leverage. At the same time, we see a lot of potential in that. Hockey has just started in 2017, and it will go the Tata Football Academy way in time to come. So we will have lots of players. We already have one here, and we also have one in Bhubaneswar, which is for girls, which is a Naval Tata Hockey Academy. So these are things which are happening. These initiatives are there. Just coming back to archery, where actually is an Olympic sport and where we have a better standing. Last Rio Olympics, out of the 4 who represented India, 3 were products of Tata Archery Academy. So when you talk about excellence, that's the level that one is talking about. Right now, there are 2 potential archers who would make it to the Olympics. We are hoping that they would make it. Deepika Kumari and Antanu Das, both India won number 1 in women and India won in men's, is from Tata Archery Academy. And both these guys, I think both of them have the potential for a medal in Olympics. So we will be only proud when it happens. There are many archers that one has produced, and I'm sure this year again we stand a chance. Last year also we almost got there. Deepika, in fact, we were in Olympics in August, and in month of May she had equaled the world record. She's also been world number 1 cadet at once upon a time.
Yeah.
So those kind of so
that time she was number 1.
Right. So she has had a fantastic journey. There are many more. We have fantastic coaches right here. We have a Korean coach who's actually grooming our boys here, Mr. Lim, who's been a national coach for many countries. So we are investing. While if it comes to hockey, we have Floris Bovelander, the Holland legend, Netherlands legend, and captain once upon a time, guiding us for that venture. So we have invested with the right people to get the right kind of knowledge and understanding of the sport to take it to the level that we want to take it. And international medals is what one is seeking. And that's where we want to peg it. So while other sports are there, and our other sports I'm talking about, because of the infrastructure and again the kind of infrastructure in terms of coaching and otherwise, they perform very well at the national and state and national levels, which I think is a very important thing for any state. And all of this is actually more about our founder's philosophy, which has percolated down. Because when the city was formed, I think Mr. Jayant Tata had written to his son, Dorab Tata, who actually was instrumental in building this plant, city and everything, to ensure that there are open spaces for football, hockey and other sports, among many other things that were supposed to be done in the city. The city was built with sports in mind. And though I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, when I came here, when you look out of the window and even otherwise, it's a very health conscious, sports loving city. You have at least 70-60% of the people doing morning walks and jogs every morning. Now that's the number I'm talking about. If there are 100 people, just imagine 60 running in the morning or 40 running in the morning and jogging and walking, on a continuous basis. This is something that you rarely see.
I think it's a part of the small town culture, not the big cities, metro culture. Small town, everybody.
It is.
I come from a small town, so I understand everybody wake up around 5 or 6 in the morning and they like to go for a morning walk. So you touch upon your leadership. We know that Mr. Ratan Tata has a very important role on how Tata Football Academy has grown throughout the years. How much interest has taken into the since Jamshedpur has arrived in Indian football. So what is his interest level on the Jamshedpur FC development?
See, it's very high. In fact, he had visited us in 2017 when we had launched. In fact, there was and he greeted the team, got an opportunity to meet with him. Of course, with his age right now, he's not moving so much. But what happens is, his without his blessings, things would not happen. So he's very much in the know, and the way we are doing things, I think it's his leadership and his thought process that has helped us be where we are. And of course, the leadership, which is right from our chairman, otherwise, I think things are working right for us. So if you know, apart from football, the way we have invested in runs, the way we have worked on many other things, I think our chairman is very keen to see to it that the sports is going to be the next big thing in India. And that's how one is taking interest and, doing his investments.
Yeah, we're talking about investment. There are lots of foreign investment which is coming into Indian football. We have seen City Group taking over Mumbai City FC. There are talks of other ISL clubs are in talks with the foreign investor. And then you have somebody like Ratan Tata's group, Tata Group, who has already invested into the ISL. So that also gave to the, who are selling their, say, club or stake. It's that somebody as big as Mr. Ratan Tata is interested in Indian football. So let's talk about a little bit of these foreign clubs who are trying to come into Indian football to invest, or foreign group like City Group. I know there are at least 3 or 4 ISL clubs who are talking to various investors in Europe. So what are the key hurdles to get these investors on board? We have worked with Mumbai FC before, so understand this, come from a long experience of managing football clubs in India.
See, I'll tell you, typically it only goes to say that you are getting a little more attractive as a footballing nation. And the very fact that you have Europeans coming here, once upon a time, Indian population was looked upon as a negative. Today, it's your biggest positive. You have so much of educated population and consumer base which is there, which could, typically take up the entire Europe and a little bit of Latin America and put together, and still you would not match up with the Indian population. So that's the consumer base one is talking about, So it is a very attractive place, and they're obviously coming here for the right reason. It's a rational decision. It is not because they want to promote their team alone. They want to promote their team because they know that they would actually get that kind of returns in the bargain, because India is a very big influence as far as these things are concerned, and we have good migratory population which is there in other countries as well. So that's why we see a lot of people with Indian origin in various important bureaucratic basically in political scenarios in other countries as well. So there is a big change that is happening in the system, and fortunately for us, if football is growing, people would come to you only if you're doing well, and this is a good sign. So I think if they're investing, it's investing for the right reason, and they obviously see benefits in it, therefore they're investing. So I think it's a very rational and a very positive thing to happen. Maybe 10 years back, if you speak to a European country and speak to them, European club, they would speak to you in a different language. They are now opened up and speak to you in a different tone and language now. That's a distance that we have traveled. And like you rightly said, there are so many clubs which are now interested to come to India. I think it talks volumes about how attractive football is getting in India.
Yeah, so just one kind of personal question. You come from Western India, has been part of FIFA and Maharashtra football for a while. Now there is Mumbai City FC, but there are no club in Pune or Mumbai who's playing in I-League. So there are several clubs in last 10 years or 15 years who has shut down in Western India. We all remember Pune FC's rise in Indian football in 2008. That was a fresh breath of thing happening in Indian football. The amount of work they did in grassroots level, at that time, it was not much heard of. So what are your thoughts on this, and why it is very important that as our Indian football community, we need to take care of, we need to, get the Western India also on board on the train, not leave them behind, city like Kolhapur, which is crazy for football. And you, I'm sure, know more than me because you were part of Mumbai FC when they used to play in Kolhapur. So little bit thoughts about this thing, how this is going right now?
See, if you ask me, typically what you're saying is right. It's not good to see or whatever has happened in the Western region. Be it Mahindra United, if you ask me, the best club that was there then point of time was Mahindra United, which has done great work. We had ONGC Air India also, which was doing fairly well. But this they didn't fit in the AFC norms because it can't be a company. It has to be a separate entity, and they had their own share of challenges. Pune FC, of course. There's Mumbai FC, which was again these were corporate clubs which came in, and we thought it was a fresh breath, as you last rightly said. In fact, we in Mumbai FC qualified in the first year itself, became the champions of the second division. So we were actually on the good growth map at that point of time, and then you had Dempo Salgaonkar as well, which is not then Churchill Brothers. Of course, they are attached with the sport in some manner, but they were at the highest level at that point of time. What I feel is it's about getting realigned, recalibrated, and these people who are there with the sport will be with the sport again. It's matter of getting that calibration right. You have new people, new clubs which have come into the fold, new investors who have come into the fold, while you have many who have left, you have many who have come in. So right now the number of registered clubs are much more than what used to be once upon a time. You have Kerala, which has got ignited big time. I think that's a fantastic example for everybody to see, where people are waiting and thirsty and hungry for a club to happen. And now that they have a club, the amount of following that you see there. So, these are things which will happen in many other places. One could have never imagined Gujarat getting ignited. This big footballing community in Gujarat, which is growing in last few years. Just because we don't have a club there, we feel that, hey, Gujarat is nothing. It's the land of businessmen. Not really. Gujarat is doing a fantastic job on football. Go to MP. MP, there's football. There's no footballing club there, mind you. But you have. But I'm talking about the highest level. But there's good amount of football happening there. So these are things which are below the radar. But there's good amount of footballing culture which is growing, and it will, with time to come, it will just show itself. So there's a lot of. Just imagine Jammu and Kashmir. Shillong, Lajong, entire Northeast. Once upon a time, we didn't have so many clubs from there. There were local clubs which were there, but they're all doing well. They're basically, there is recognition. There's good amount. When we have a good, we have Tata Trust, which does some work back in Northeast and particularly in Mizoram as well. And one realizes that, there's a good amount of number and following that has happened. People are actually spending time, and basically, I see this sport at a different level in next 5-7 years. And trust me, though you might start talking about only ISL for 11 clubs, the potential in India is much bigger. And the investments will happen. The right kind of, it's about, as I said, getting realigned and recalibrated. And I see the Western India getting reignited again. And Mumbai City is doing a good job. There'll be something happening in Pune as well. See, there are challenges which each of these clubs have. Infrastructure in big cities is not easy. I've been there, I know it. Getting a stadium, getting things, real estate is not as easy as what we think it is. Having said that, apart from real estate, it's also about the way the sport is right now. It still will take a while for it to turn positive. And then we're still in the investment phase. But when this investment phase moves into what right now IPL is into, IPL also took almost 7-8 years to turn positive. While some of the clubs were making money, not many cricket teams were making money. They were not breaking even. But it happened a little late. But now this is your richest cousin, cricket. If he's going through that phase and now cricket is more or less settled and they are doing pretty well, they are aligned, I think it will happen to football. Though the relative investment is much lower in football, it will happen. It's a matter of time. I've seen it happen, and we have seen it happening in other countries. India is no exception. And with the kind of audience and stuff that you have, I think it will just change. See, just to give you a small example, I come from entertainment industry, so I understand satellite distribution. The channel distribution and stuff, because I've worked with 10, I've worked with Z, and typically once upon a time when we had cable TV, once upon a time, if you remember. You had a lot of gray areas where you would have 100 connections, but the cable wala will tell 5 to his channel owner, and accordingly pay monies to them in the month. Even we would subscribe that for about 80 rupees, 100 rupees per month. So the money per se into television and software never is to go there. It is to get distributed in between in the system. With satellite television like Dish, Sky, Tata Sky and others coming in, you know the exact number of connections, you know the exact number of numbers that you're reaching out. Everything is getting more and more regulated, so to say. Now this money is flowing back into the system in a more appropriate manner. with this kind of revenues coming into the system, right, the broadcasters have become stronger. If the broadcast becomes stronger, the broadcaster will, wherever he invests, he would invest with that in mind. And then it becomes more of a rational decision for him to decide whether he wants to invest in football, whether he wants to invest in kabaddi, whether he wants to invest in this thing, and see to it how they take it to that level. Because now he has that exact number and the money is coming in and the popularity is measured rightfully. Okay, so now the amount of money that are flowing into the sport is much more than what it used to be once upon a time, because the right numbers were never there. Now the subscription fee is the biggest earner for a broadcaster and the entertainment industry per se. Now that is going to the right hands, and now that is getting redistributed with the teams and the clubs, and finally to the grassroots player who's there. It's impacting.
Yeah.
So all this matters, and I think therefore we have a lot of correction that is happening in the system, and therefore you would see a lot of change in the coming years, which I see it as a big plus for Indian sporting culture per se. So I think in time to come, I'm just waiting for those days to happen. Let's hope this in the next 7 to 8 years, India will be a biggest or one of the big footballing or rather sporting nation.
Just before we move ahead, when we talk about Maharashtra, everybody talk about Pune and Bombay. One city or one place which goes under radar is Kolhapur. I know I touched before. I just want to hear from you so that people can know and who might be interested to come into Indian football. What you think about, it's not even a proper city, Kolhapur, I have heard lots of stories. I've seen Mumbai FC playing there. I've seen Indian women's team playing there. I heard from lots of people. People are crazy for football there. So can you tell the viewers and listeners, of your experience working in Kolhapur, playing I-League matches there with Mumbai FC?
See, Kolhapur is again a unique city. It is a sports-loving city. You have lots of athletes who have come from there, be it wrestling, be it many other sports. And it is something which is actually in the DNA of the city, where they love sports and love cheering for the sport. And competition is something that they look forward to. So this is something which is very good for any sport to flourish. So even if wrestling is big in Kolhapur, Satara, that region, if you know, and once upon a time there were lots of local tournaments and matches which used to take place, be it a bullock cart race for example, and many other things apart from those. But having said that, typically football has its own charm. You have lots of basically it's a sport loving city, and therefore it will follow every sport and competition that they would want to get their opportunity, or whichever opportunity they would get. So of course it's a potent place, but like Kolhapur, you have many other cities which are there. Britishers, Portuguese, French all entered from the coastal sides, and you have the entire belt of Tamil Nadu, Kerala, which has fantastic footballing talent, untapped. Okay, Susairaj is a big example.
Yeah.
Now, there are many such Susairajas in many of these places, and football is very much ingrained into these systems because of the culture that has been passed on from ages. And I have this fisherman community which has been playing footballs, and you imagine the length of a coastline. It is tremendous, and this entire coastline you will find some footballing or the other happening, and they play on sand. The endurance level is very different.
It's just like Brazilian, they all
exactly
football on sand.
Exactly. And trust me, it is very different. Life is going to be, but there's so many places to be tapped, and there's the big. When I'm saying it, I'm saying it in a positive manner. There's big underbelly of football, which you will see in time to come. Because now with the ISL, the way it is getting popular, we are reaching many more states. Once upon a time, even I-League for that matter was played in West and East.
Yeah.
Now it's spread out. So there's a journey that we have traveled. Things have happened for us. It's only going to get better. The television numbers are getting better. Everything, the reach is getting better. You are getting players from far regions which were not there. These are role models in their own city back home. So you're igniting many other smaller locations where football is a culture. All these things will all add up, and they will basically bear fruits in year to come. So it's a matter of time. And I think it's still something which is more not visible so much to many people. Because I'm in the industry, I can still see it. But when you speak to players, when you speak to many others who come from remote places, and you ask them, hey, is there a football infrastructure in your place? And he says, yes, sir, हमारा गांव का जमीन है, उधर हम लोग खेलता है, स्कूल का पीछे ग्राउंड है, but any given point of time we fight over time slots because फिर हम लोग 17 जन एक साइड पे खेलते हैं. 17 people on one side and we still play because we have so many people to play, and but we play and it's fun to watch and do this. Then we have created 5-a-side grounds, and then that this remote village which you have never heard of has so much of footballing culture in that place, and this particular boy has come from there and he's made it to the national level. So all those things are very inspiring, and then that there's much more than what your eye can see. So I think there's a lot of things to happen in time to come.
So you touch upon Michael Susiraj. He's a big example that we need club at the top level, but we need somebody to find the Michael Susiraj on the various village level also. So we need clubs. We need more clubs for sure. So let's move ahead from the club football and everything. Let's talk about the fan culture in India. And with the ISL coming up, there are lots of fan clubs who have every football club have their own fan clubs. So can you speak about it, and also how fan club be more constructive, can help clubs to do better?
See, I'll tell you, typically it has a big influence on the entire overall ecosystem and the culture, because when you have a fan, it basically is that much more motivating for the player. Just imagine right now we are going to play without audience in the stadium. We are watching the European games right now. When you have that cheer happening, and last 15 minutes when you actually need that boost, many of the players are actually mentioned that when you do a turnaround, it's sometimes when the fan sitting in the audience who basically is shouting your name, yes, we can do it, and then there's a turnaround and you basically make a comeback, and team which is losing 2-0 is suddenly 3-1, and some wins 2-3 is something that is only fans can do, and that is the importance and relevance, because it keeps the player and athlete going even when the match is not on. There's a lot of engagement that we see in social media and otherwise. All this is motivating the player, helping the player. He feels important, relevant, and when he sees his own following, he also feels that he has to meet up with certain expectations. There's a certain amount of pressure. See, while we say pressure in a negative way, there's an importance and relevance of essential pressure. Because if you don't have that kind of pressure, you may not be able to deliver. While you have to go in a free flow and do that, you also sometimes feel obligated that, hey, what will my fans feel about me if I don't get this right? And therefore you want to do that right. So it's basically the fan in your mind that pushes you times. So it makes a big difference, and I think our Indian fans are just amazing. And if you ask me about Jamshedpur fans, they are wonderful. They're out of the world. I think Red Miners has been with us, and the way they've been working, I think there's no words to describe them. We just say fantastic.
Yeah, so just coming on them also, right? So when we got on your board, so we reach out to them, and our fan also we sent some questions, and Jamshedpur FC fans and the Red Miners have sent some questions which I have picked on, which are unique to whatever speak till now, whichever you spoke till now. So let me ask, these are from Red Miners, by the way, so I'm mentioning that. So there's one question about Jamshedpur planning to field women's team in Indian Women's League, because there's a huge boost in the women's football in India now. What are Jamshedpur FC plan for the women's football?
So typically, I'll tell you what, it's part of our criteria, and keeping that in mind, one is actually helping certain teams here. But we have not launched our team per se. We're just 3 years old. We're getting our act right as far as all the other things are concerned. Jamshedpur typically is more or less run by Tata Steel, and the JSA league that I was mentioning before. I think we are among the few leagues which actually has a women's league running, and we are promoting women's football in a big way. It's on our minds. It's AFC criteria we need to fulfill. We have it's a type C criteria, but in coming years it will become B and A as we go along. We will take steps in that direction. Of course, it's on our mind. I may not be able to give a date to it because, but at the same time, it's on our mind. We have already take steps in the direction where we have been working with some of the girls, which who are playing, and we are encouraging them to play football. In fact, my soccer schools, where we have almost 3,000 odd kids which are there, we have almost over 10% girl child who are playing football, which is very pleasant to see at the age of 7, 8, 10, 15. It's basically nice to see the small kids and particularly girls who are playing there, and we want to encourage more and more such players. So in time to come, it would be there. We will have our own team, but it's a matter of time. I can't put a date to it, as I said, but since it's a part of the AFC criteria also, so it's So it's something that we have to fulfill. At the same time, even if it had not been in the criteria, we would have still done it. But as you know, we have to take steps as we go along, and we will do that.
So another question from the Red Miners side. Are club planning to promote a few players from reserve squads like you did earlier, last season? In mid-season, you promoted some player from the reserve squads. So should fans get excited about some local talent coming up from the reserve squad to the main squad for this season?
See, I would not put that pressure on the coach. It would typically, you want your team to perform. Of course, you will give opportunity to your reserve squad and try to see. There are players who actually, there's Sandeep Mandi who are not even part of reserves. He moved from TFA to directly to the senior team.
Yeah.
So when it's about encouraging young talent, we are right up there. And fortunate for us that we have TFA system which was there, and we have not everybody in this ISL has a reserve team, but we have a reserve team. So these are steps that we have taken, and of course that is started with the intention that you give opportunity to them for them to actually move up the ladder and be part of the senior team. So there could be, I can't really say whether it will happen.
You can't take the name.
It will evolve, of course. But at the same time, it is something which is on our minds, and the reserve squad is being started with that intention. So the purpose of the reserve squad is actually to be reserved to the senior team. So you have talent available for you whenever you want them. And if there's some need that you need to fill in, of course, the gap is something which they only get better with exposure. So they play second division and represent us as a club team. So we will continue to do that. Let's see.
Yeah. So there's another question: is that how is the club planning to minimize the club fan bridge to involve and increase more fan engagement in the state, not just in Jamshedpur, but say whole Jharkhand?
So the question is right. It's only that it's always good that you first have a good base in the city that you are in. And fortunately for us, the city has been very, very cooperative, and they basically has been showing very, very encouraging numbers when they come to the stadium and otherwise. While we do this, when you have a good base here, obviously other towns in the state gets this activity has been spoken about in other cities and towns. And when you go there, basically already are their minds. So of course there are other cities in this state which people will go to. We are already speaking to some people, but it's again like I said, we're just 3 years old, and we are also getting our feet firm on the ground. There are many things we learned during this period. We are also speaking to. It's also about setting up that infrastructure. It's not that we want to do it half-heartedly, and we have to do it in the right manner when we do it. So of course, if I have to set up something back in Ranchi, Dhanbad, or Bokaro, I have to see to it that it is being done in the right manner. So you have to train the coaches, you have to see to it that the system is right, and then roll it out. So these are there on cards. One is working on it, and one will have more presence across the state in time to come.
Yeah. So just last question from the fan side. You have lots of youngsters, FIFA Under-17 World Cup star like Amarjeet, Narendra, and bunch of Indian youngsters already on your roster. What is the plan with these players that to make sure that they are the part of the long-term future of the club? And also another question on this, that what do you think are the key objective of the club, say in next couple of years?
See, the key objective is of course to play AFC. And that's the aspiration that one has. And therefore one is working in that direction. Young talent is what we have been investing in always. And right from Jerry, which had happened, to many others who have played with us, we have been encouraging more and more young players, and TFA is something that we are very keen on seeing to it that they come into reserves. So you have an entire pathway. You're working on grassroots. You have a TFA, which is the residential academy, which works as a finishing school. Then you have a reserve team that they move on to, and then you have a senior team. So you have created an entire pathway in last 2.5, 3 years. That itself is a big sign of seeing to it that you have a proper supply chain when it comes to players. Having said that, typically young players, the reason why one has done this forward and backward integration is just to ensure that you have young talent coming into the system, and that too you basically create that young talent. You basically groom that young talent on your own, and that's why it only talks about that tomorrow, even now as we speak, there are 10 boys from fresh graduates who have come from TFA who are inducted into the reserves this season. So these are things that are happening, and I think we have that advantage over other clubs when it comes to young talent, producing young talents.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up. I just want to give you some time, a message which you want to send to Jamshedpur FC fans, Red Miners, and everybody watching. It's between you and your fans now. If you have any message, please give.
Yeah, this year is a special year, and honestly, we will miss our fans big time. But more importantly, they have been fantastic support system for the club all the while, be it on the field, off the field. Even when we are doing a grassroots program, we have our fans right there, and I think we share a very good bond. And I've been seeing a lot of encouraging response on all the social media handles from all the kind of team they've been supporting, the way they are happy with the team. I'm hoping that we meet up with the expectation this year. And trust me, we have put a very good, strong squad, and we will actually do much better than what you thought, what we promised you. It will be, it's for time to see what we do. But yes, it's going to be a special year. We are going to miss you big time because no audience and whatever effect that you would to have, I think that used to make a big difference to us when the team was playing, and every member of the team used to have that in their minds. Ki boss, I have a big fan base that I have to live up to, which they always would respect and would look forward to you. But I'm sure that even with this, you will be watching us, cheering for us from wherever you are, and seeing to it that everywhere in social media, wherever you get an opportunity, you will be with your team always. So we'll jam ke khelenge this year, and we want jam ke support from you. Thanks a lot.
A big thank you to you, Mukul, for making time from your undoubtedly very busy schedule to join us today for this, this podcast. And to everybody who's listening and watching, don't forget you can listen to all the episode of Beyond the Score podcast on your leisure on Spotify, iTunes, JioSaavn, Gaana, Google Podcast, and all other major platforms. You can also catch them in video form on our YouTube channel, Khelnao TV. Until next time, this is your host, Ashish Negi, signing off. Thank you.